headlines leader, Memphis rapper GloRilla is arrested in Georgia just days before she's set to perform at her Glo Bash at FedEx Forum.
Show will go on. Rapper GloRilla will host a concert in Tennessee tomorrow after being arrested.
They didn't break into just any house. They broke into GloRilla's world while she was on stage lighting up the WNBA All-Star Game. 3 masked strangers were slipping into her home like shadows in the night. But what started as a robbery turned into something darker. No suspects arrested. No justice served. And yet, the only name dragged through the mud, was hers. What really happened that night? And why does it feel like this wasn't just a crime, it was a message? Just days before she was scheduled to light up the stage at her highly anticipated Glo Bash in Memphis, rapper GloRilla found herself behind bars in Georgia. The arrest shocked fans and stirred headlines, casting a shadow over what was meant to be a celebratory moment. What happened next would raise questions not just about GloRilla's legal troubles, but about the pressures that come with rising fame and public scrutiny.
I wonder, did they have probable cause to go in her closet?
Well, they probably went to see what was stolen, and when they went to see what's stolen, found But, you know, GloRilla is really sad. Those people robbed her house, stole her jewelry, and left that. That's messed up.
Yeah. The night's silence shattered abruptly by the crack of gunfire, sharp and unexpected, slicing through the calm like a knife. It was around 1:30 a.m., a time when most are deep in sleep, unaware of the drama unfolding just miles away from the bustling city centers. 3 figures, cloaked in darkness and masked to hide their identities, crept stealthily through the shadows. Their presence was ominous, calculated, and chilling, a home invasion in progress. This wasn't some random act of trespassing or petty theft. It was a breach of sanctuary, a violent intrusion into a place where no one had the right to be. The quiet neighborhood suddenly felt vulnerable, the sense of safety broken by the sinister movement of these unknown assailants. Yet, in stark contrast to this chaos, GloRilla herself was nowhere near the scene. Far from the turmoil, she was on a grand stage in Indianapolis, commanding attention at the WNBA All-Star Game halftime show. The energy in the arena was electric, the crowd hanging on her every lyric, as she delivered verses with a fierce intensity that had become her signature. The spotlight was hers, and she owned it with every bar, every move, every confident breath. While fans cheered and cameras flashed, the very same night was morphing into a nightmare back at her residence. Inside the home, a tense and volatile situation was unfolding behind locked doors. A family member, someone with a deep sense of responsibility and courage, refused to let the home be violated without resistance. When those 3 masked intruders broke through, armed with intent, it was this occupant who took a stand. Firing shots wasn't just an act of defense, it was a desperate, raw attempt to protect family, property, and peace. The sound of gunfire was both terrifying and necessary, a warning flare sent into the dark, telling those who trespassed that they were unwelcome and that the home would not be an easy target. Miraculously, no one was physically injured that night. The burglars, spooked and outmatched by unexpected resistance, fled into the surrounding darkness, disappearing like shadows swallowed by the night. The immediate crisis was over, but what should have been a clear-cut story of self-defense and home protection soon became anything but simple. What followed was a labyrinth of confusion, conflicting reports, and questions that gnawed at the edges of the narrative. Police arrived to investigate the incident, and from there, the story took a bizarre turn. Instead of focusing primarily on the break and the stolen items, the signs of forced entry, the frightened family who had every right to be safe, the law enforcement attention shifted oddly. Detectives and officers honed in on something unexpected: a scent. This seemingly minor detail escalated quickly, prompting the call for the Regional Substances Unit to arrive. The scene transformed from a burglary investigation into a drug search operation. The search warrant was executed with intensity. Officers rummaging through personal spaces, including GloRilla's bedroom closet. What they uncovered was not weapons, or stolen property, nor any evidence pointing to a staged crime. Instead, they found a stash of greenery and a Schedule I substance, a controlled material that under Georgia law carried serious felony implications. The timing was critical. GloRilla was hundreds of miles away at the time of the invasion, immersed in her performance, oblivious to the chaos invading her home. In an unexpected twist, GloRilla became the only person arrested in connection with the entire event. The home was violated. Her family had to defend themselves with gunfire. The intruders vanished without a trace, and yet she alone was cuffed and booked. The injustice was glaring, a stark paradox that perplexed many observers. How does the victim become the suspect? How does the defender become the defendant? This night, which should have been a straightforward case of self-defense and home invasion, instead spiraled into something tangled and unsettling. It highlighted uncomfortable questions about justice, bias, and the complex realities faced by high-profile figures, especially Black women in the criminal justice system, the tension between public image and private turmoil, between the stage lights and the shadows behind locked doors, paints a vivid picture of how complicated and unjust life can become when fame intersects with law enforcement scrutiny. While GloRilla rapped and energized the crowd in Indianapolis, miles away her family faced fear, danger, and confusion. The night was a collision of two worlds, one glittering and triumphant, the other fraught with tension and violation. The gunfire echoed long after the performance ended, a haunting reminder that safety can never be taken for granted, and that sometimes the battles fought off stage are just as fierce as those in the spotlight.
Released, and at the time when this story broke, the details of the arrest were not clear. So then GloRilla's attorney, Drew Finland, released a statement. So he sent the statement to us, and he says, the arrest of Gloria Woods is a disturbing window into how warped law enforcement priorities have become. Ms. Woods was out of town when her residence became a target for...
Here's where the narrative takes a sudden and unexpected shift, one that raises more questions than answers. When law enforcement arrived at the scene to investigate what initially appeared to be a straightforward home invasion, their focus didn't zero in on the most glaring and immediate issues: the missing valuables, the evident signs of forced entry, or the visibly shaken family members who had bravely defended their home against armed intruders. Instead, something else caught their attention: a scent. It was this elusive detail, rather than the broken locks or the trauma experienced by those inside, that triggered a cascade of events, turning the burglary investigation into something much more complex and troubling. The scent reportedly detected at the scene prompted authorities to call in the Regional Substances Unit, escalating what should have been a burglary case into a full-scale search warrant operation. The atmosphere changed from one of crime scene processing to a more invasive search, as officers meticulously combed through personal spaces. Among the areas they searched was GloRilla's bedroom closet, where they discovered sealed evidence bags. But what lay inside those bags wasn't what anyone might have expected. No weapons, no stolen goods, and no concrete proof of any orchestrated plot to fake the break-in. Instead, the items found were a small stash of greenery along with a schedule, one substance, quietly stored in her private space while she was miles away, performing on stage at the WNBA All-Star Game. The irony is hard to miss. The home was invaded, the family inside forced to defend themselves with gunfire, yet no suspects have been apprehended or charged in connection to the violent break-in. The burglars vanished without a trace. No arrests were made, but the only individual arrested in this entire ordeal was the homeowner herself. And here's the kicker: GloRilla wasn't even home at the time. She was hundreds of miles away, immersed in her craft, delivering a high-energy performance. While the chaos unfolded back at her residence, she ultimately surrendered to the authorities, voluntarily, posting bail that reportedly topped $22,000 to secure her release from jail. But the damage had already been done in the court of public opinion. Instead of being seen as the victim of a violent home invasion, GloRilla found herself framed in headlines as a criminal mastermind. A portrayal far removed from the hard-working artist balancing the grueling demands of a national tour. It's a narrative twist that cuts deep, highlighting the stark contradictions and systemic injustices at the intersection of fame, race, and the criminal justice system. This situation exposes a harsh reality faced by many public figures, particularly Black women, who navigate the difficult terrain of visibility while contending with the biases and flaws of the legal system. GloRilla's story becomes a powerful lens through which to examine how fame can sometimes magnify vulnerability rather than offer protection. While she stands on stage, commanding crowds and earning acclaim, the very system she has challenged, calling out police misconduct and corruptions, its gaze on her, in a way that feels less about justice and more about control. In the midst of this, questions swirl. Why was the investigation diverted from the violent home invasion to a drug possession charge? Why was no effort publicly made to pursue the actual intruders who shattered a family's sense of safety? And most importantly, how does a victim become a suspect, and even worse, the only person arrested? The answers remain elusive, tangled in layers of legal complexities and systemic bias, Ultimately, GloRilla's experience shines a light on the precarious balance between celebrity and survival, and the harsh realities faced by those who refuse to be silenced. It underscores how the very systems meant to protect can sometimes ensnare the innocent, turning them into symbols of controversy rather than champions of resilience. This isn't just one woman's story, it's a reflection of broader societal struggles around justice, identity, and the price of being unapologetically oneself in a world that often demands conformity.
Now, GloRilla was released the same day on a $22,260 bond. And again, she is expected to perform tomorrow night at her Glow Bash at FedEx Forum. Now, she tweeted about her arrest and she said, long story short, my house gets invaded and I'm the only one that gets arrested. Now, GloRilla's attorney says that there have not been any arrest warrants in touch with that home invasion. And she went on to say that GloRilla is a victim, not.
GloRilla refused to stay silent. Mere days after her arrest, she unleashed a wave of fiery posts that spread like wildfire across social media. In her own blunt words, she summed it up: my house gets home invaded and I'm the only one that gets arrested. So that's tea, but she didn't stop there. Taking her defiance a step further, she emblazoned her own mugshot on t-shirts, selling them at her Glow Bash concert. This wasn't just rebellion. It was reclaiming her story, turning pain into power, and rewriting the narrative before the system could define her. It's a bold move, branding trauma on her own terms.
And they sent me a statement, and in the statement, they say that the reason why they were able to arrest her was because they found was in a closet in the master bedroom, and the master bedroom belongs to GloRilla. So that is why they went forward and issued the arrest warrant for her. Now, at the end of their statement, they do say this: they are the police down there say the homeowner is a victim of a serious crime, and we are committed to bringing the suspect to justice. This was a statement from the.
Beneath the surface of memes and merch, a deeper tension simmers. Across social feeds and comment threads, the question echoes loud and clear: why her? Why now? Fans and observers alike are casting wary glances beyond the First Force County Sheriff's Office, murmuring about a possible vendetta. This isn't GloRilla's first brush with Georgia law enforcement. A DUI from last year already fueled speculation that she might be targeted. GloRilla has never been one to stay quiet either. She's boldly called out police corruption, both on stage and online, dropping cryptic hints about industry surveillance. An anonymous former label executive even claims she was cautioned by a Southern PR agency to keep a low profile after her previous legal troubles, or risk damaging her career. While no one is outright saying she's on a blacklist, the signs are hard to ignore. Here's a 26-year-old black woman, Grammy-nominated and topping charts, throwing a huge party in her hometown, collaborating with big names like Tyler the Creator, spotted hanging out with NBA stars, celebrating milestones with flair. All of it a powerful statement. That level of confidence and influence doesn't sit comfortably with everyone, especially those holding badges of authority.
Family members did the right thing. They called the law enforcement, called police. Instead of investigating a violent home invasion and theft of Miss Woods, they instead sought a search warrant when they spotted what they believed was a small amount of marijuana. Law enforcement then sought an arrest warrant for her, even though she hadn't been home for some time. No arrest warrants have been issued for the violent home invaders. Mrs. Woods is a victim.
Fame demands a price. No matter how fiercely someone claims their throne, the weight always cuts deep. Beneath GloRilla's bold public stance, carefully crafted social posts, flawless performances, and playful online jabs, there's a young woman navigating one of the most intense spotlights of her life. This isn't just an attack on her image or career, it's a probe into her very identity. Facing legal chaos, having your personal sanctuary violated, and watching your name spiral through headlines as a warning story changes a person, especially when the world expects you to smile through it all while selling out arenas. There's a unique kind of exhaustion in being both a symbol of strength and a scapegoat. For Black women in entertainment, the stakes are even higher. GloRilla didn't just break into rap, she stormed the scene on her own terms, loud and fearless, dripping with Memphis flavor and zero apologies. But the industry doesn't always reward authenticity. It scrutinizes, weaponizes it, and when that leads to felony charges and public social media trials, it's worth asking what toll this takes off camera. Even the strongest need space to breathe, and lately, Glo hasn't been granted that room. Here's the hard truth: GloRilla was arrested in Forsyth County, Georgia, facing felony charges for possession of a controlled substance, over 1 ounce of a Schedule I drug under Georgia law. That's no small matter. Yet, as her success climbs, the walls around her shrink not because she pushes people away, but because trust grows fragile when every direct message could leak, and every friend could flip. Add the pressure of legal battles, label politics, and public scrutiny, and what remains is a 26-year-old caught in a whirlwind of noise, possibly lonelier than ever. Vacationing in Mexico doesn't mean her mind rests. Stress creeps deep, no matter the beauty of the resort. What we see is survival under unrelenting pressure, and it's crucial to remember, surviving doesn't always mean thriving. Fans witness the posts, the merch drops, the witty captions, but they miss the unanswered lawyer calls, the quiet dinners, the emotional weight of being a victim who's still painted as the problem. GloRilla embodies a living paradox, both celebrated and condemned in the same breath. That duality doesn't just fill headlines, it leaves scars. It's honestly one of the wildest aspects. She wasn't even home when it happened, and we don't fully know what unfolded. The burglars could have left that substance behind. Anything is possible. That uncertainty is why this story resonates beyond the headlines. It's not just about questionable charges or shadowy intruders. It's about resilience in a world that demands non-stop performance but offers little protection. It's about a woman who built her platform from scratch, only to see her success turned against her. No matter how loud the music or bright the stage lights, there's a real person holding it all together. The Forsyth County Sheriff's Office insists they're hunting the real suspects. But let's be honest, it feels like performative justice. They speak the right words about victims, fairness, and enforcing the law. Yet when headlines shout louder than handcuffs, that's theater, not investigation. GloRilla is forced to play both star and audience in this drama. Meanwhile, FedEx Forum officials in Memphis confirmed that GloRilla's concert will proceed as planned, just days after her arrest in Georgia. So here's the big question. Was this truly about a controlled substance, or was it a message about who's allowed to rise without permission? Who gets to be loud, powerful, and unfiltered without paying a price? When the law prioritizes searching closets over chasing intruders, justice becomes control. If that's the true motive behind GloRilla's arrest. This story goes beyond scandal. It's a warning to artists, women, and anyone daring to own their narrative. What do you think? Was GloRilla targeted, or just caught in the system's blind spot? Share your thoughts below, don't hold back. Until next time, stay bold, stay curious, and question everything the badge tells you. Fame carries a heavy toll. No matter how boldly someone claims their throne, the pressure always cuts deep. Behind GloRilla's fearless public persona, viral posts, the flawless performances, and cheeky social media banter, there's a young woman facing one of the most intense spotlights of her life. This isn't just an attack on her career or image. It's an intrusion into her very identity. To endure legal battles, have your sanctuary violated, and then see your name dragged across headlines as a warning story. That experience shapes you, especially when the world expects you to smile through it all while filling arenas. The exhaustion of being both a symbol of hope and a target for blame is real. And for Black women in entertainment, the stakes double. GloRilla didn't just break into rap. She carved her path, unapologetic and loud, with that unmistakable Memphis edge. But the industry doesn't always celebrate authenticity. It scrutinizes, weaponizes, and when that scrutiny morphs into felony charges and public trials on social media, we must ask, what toll is this taking behind the scenes? Even the strongest need space to breathe, and lately, Glo seems denied that grace. So here's the situation. GloRilla was arrested in Forsyth County, Georgia, on felony charges for possession of a controlled substance, specifically over 1 ounce of a Schedule I drug under Georgia law. That's serious. Fame's isolation grows as success rises. Her inner circle shrinks. Not by choice, but because trust fractures when every message could be leaked, every friend could turn. Add legal battles, label politics, and public opinion, and you have a 26-year-old surrounded by noise, yet possibly more alone than ever. Sure, she might be enjoying a Mexican getaway, but her mind is far from at ease. Stress cuts deep, no matter the luxury backdrop. What we witness is survival under relentless pressure, and surviving isn't the same as thriving. Fans see the social media posts, the merch drops, the clever captions, but miss the late calls from attorneys, the quiet meals, the emotional weight of being a victim who's painted as the villain. GloRilla embodies a paradox celebrated and condemned simultaneously, and that duality doesn't just make headlines, it leaves scars. Honestly, it's mind-boggling. She wasn't even home when it happened. And honestly, we don't know the full story. Those burglars could have left that substance behind, or worse. The unknown is exactly why this story hits harder than many realize. It's not just about questionable charges or mysterious intruders. It's about resilience in a world that demands non-stop performance, yet offers little protection. It's about a woman who built her empire from nothing only to face the weaponization of her success. No matter how loud the beats or bright the lights, there's a real person holding it all together. The Forsyth County Sheriff's Office insists they're hunting the real suspects, but let's be real, it feels like performative justice. They talk about fairness and victim support. Yet when headlines shout louder than evidence, it's less investigation, more showmanship. GloRilla has been forced to play both star and audience in this drama. As for the show, officials at FedEx Forum confirmed GloRilla's concert will proceed as planned, just days after her arrest. So the question remains, was this about a controlled substance or a warning shot fired at anyone daring to rise too loudly? Who gets to claim power unfiltered without consequence? When police prioritize searching closets over catching burglars, justice loses meaning, it becomes control. If that's the true motive behind GloRilla's arrest, this story transcends scandal. It's a stark caution to artists, women, anyone bold enough to tell their own story. What do you think? Was GloRilla targeted or simply caught in the system's blind spot? Share your thoughts below. Don't hold back. Until next time, stay bold, stay curious, and question everything the badge tells you.